So it's really important to understand that the casing matters also for fields inside of a struct. But here for this struct, we created our own new user constructor function anyways. So we shouldn't really need to expose the struct, do we? Well, I do wanna expose the struct type, user, so that we can set up the type, for example here, in other packages. But I indeed don't wanna expose the fields. Those, in this case here, and that might be different for your applications, but in this example here, these fields should indeed not be accessible from outside this user package. Therefore, I'll make sure that they all start with a lowercase character. And back in structs go, we therefore can't create this struct like this anymore. Instead, we'll have to use this constructor function. But in order for that to be available outside of this file, it also must start with an uppercase character. Otherwise, we can't call it. Here we now also must update the return value type, because my struct type here now does start with an uppercase U, and therefore we must use an uppercase U here as well, and also here where I create the struct value. Now with that, new user is made available, and therefore back in structs go, we can go back to this code and access the user package to access new user. And now we can pass user first name to new user, user last name, and user birth date again. Now, since this also potentially returns an error, we have to accept and store this error like this. And therefore, all this code here works again. Now, what does not work is this code, though. Calling these methods fails. And that fails because, you might already guess it, these methods start with a lowercase character. And therefore, again, they're not exported. They're only usable from inside this user package. Now, again, that might be what you need for your application, but here in this demo, my idea indeed is that we can't directly interact with the struct fields, but that we instead have to use the methods to, for example, view the user details or to clear the username. And therefore, for this demo app, they should be exposed. They should be exported. Hence, I'll change their names to start with uppercase characters. And we also need to adjust the struct type name here, since it does start with an uppercase U now. And with that, these methods are exported, are made available outside of this package. And back in structs go, we can therefore now call output user details with an uppercase O, clear username with an uppercase C. And also update this code. And with that, there should be no more errors in the code, and the application should run again. So if I run it here, I am indeed asked for my name, and if I enter something invalid, I get this error message. So we are clearly using that constructor function, and its validation works. And on the other hand, if I enter this and I enter valid values for all fields, I get this output and then the same output without names because they were cleared. And that's how we can put a struct into its own package and then make it available in other packages. Now there's one more thing you should know about this constructor function, because when you have a struct in a separate package, as it's the case here, it's not uncommon to just name this constructor function new. Because you have to call it on the user package anyways. So we previously called user.newUser, which is of course not bad, but if we now rename this function to just new, we just have to call user.new, and it's still very clear that we're creating a new user with that, because we're calling it on the user package. So that's also a pattern you'll see in many Go projects, that you have a package, that is mostly about one specific struct and all its methods and so on, and that therefore exposes such a constructor function which is just called new, which creates a new instance of that specific struct about which this package is. You, for example, also see that on the built-in errors package, because there we also called errors.new, not new error. This function doesn't exist, but instead .new to create a new error value. So the people working on that errors package also followed this pattern of just using new as a constructor function name.